How many times have you had a glut of a crop that's nice, but you don't need it all in one go? Or you've had a crop that you absolutely love, but you've only managed to eat it for a couple of weeks of the season and then it's over? Or that you kind of just wish that you could be completely self-sufficient in salads all year? Well, the answer to making all of those things possible and better is through succession planting to extend the harvest periods. Succession planting is a growing technique where you stagger the planting or the sowings of crops in order to lengthen the harvest period or season. It also includes growing varieties of certain crops that are specific for different seasons. For example, you have summer cabbage, autumn cabbage, winter cabbage and spring cabbage. Succession also includes simply replacing one harvest with another, such as following leeks after new potatoes, but we're not going into that. Instead, we're focusing on individual crops. I'll give you a real simple example of succession planting, starting with these field beans. So these were sown when the sweet corn was kind of coming towards the end of the season, and since then, earlier this year, we've started about 2 separate sowings of field beans, and so whilst these start to finish their harvesting, the other field beans will start coming into fruition. Really important to note that there's some crops that aren't really suitable for succession planting. Usually these are things like your winter crops, for example parsnips and swede. You just sow them and they just stay in the ground all over winter. No real reason to succession plant. Another example is garlic. The best time for us to plant out garlic is kind of October, November time. Anything that I do in spring is never going to be quite as good. And the other one is perennial vegetables. You can be a little bit clever with some of the tubers or some perennials, for example herbs, by growing them in a polytunnel, so you get them a little bit earlier than you would outside. But apart from that, there's no real reason to succession plant them. Succession planting is mainly for the annuals that you harvest during the growing season. For example, peas. Peas are a very simple crop to succession plant, especially if you have undercover growing areas, because these peas here, they're going to be the first ones that we end up harvesting. And then on kind of a 2 to 3 week cycle, we make sure we sow another batch of peas. They then start going out into raised beds, and it means instead of just enjoying these peas and then having no more for the rest of the year, we can enjoy them from about end of May, depending on how things go, all the way until August. Another popular style of succession planting is with your spuds. So these are the first early potatoes, and then you have second early, and then you have main crop, and then you can also grow Christmas potatoes where you plant them in June or July in pots and then grow them on in a polytunnel just to extend cropping throughout a lot of the season. And another example is your annual herbs such as basil, coriander, dill, just sowing a fresh batch every 3 to 4 weeks, transplanting it. Sometimes they have a bit of a habit, like coriander, to start running to seed, and so by succession planting you make sure that you always are in stock with the fresh leaves. Succession planting is the opposite of, say, planting all of one crop in one go, and it's instead doing it on a little bit often or a little bit regular basis, so really spreading it out. Now, sometimes crops are just going to catch up with the previous batch, and that's absolutely fine, but it's good to kind of just get into a habit of setting a routine, selecting the crops that you want to succession plant, and a lot of the times it can just be very simple. For example, you could do an early, say, carrot harvest, and then you can do a carrot harvest that you can store over winter and enjoy for the winter months. You might only have to succession plant one crop 2 or 3 times, whereas for other crops like salads, you might be succession planting 6 or 7 times over a season. So let's look at how you can create a succession planting strategy which is going to help feed you a lot this year. Essentially, there's 3 categories. There's your regulars, which are things that you maybe sow every couple of weeks. There's your semi-regulars, which are around every 4 to 5 weeks. And then there's more of the one-offs where you might only do it 2 or 3 times in the whole season. And so an example of a regular might be something like radish, because radish has quite a short harvest window between when it's ready and then when it starts running to flower. but something like a semi-regular might be fennel or kohlrabi. You also need to take into account the window, the sowing window. So something like radish, you can sow from February until September. That's a really big sowing window. But if you're thinking about, say, bush beans, dwarf French beans, then that is more of kind of April to July. And the most important consideration when you are planning out your succession planting for what's going to be your regulars and semi-regulars within the crop windows is to always remember to grow the crops that you enjoy eating the most. When I was planning out this video, I just jotted down a few of the both regular examples, semi-regular examples that popped into my mind. So for the regular, that could be things like radish, coriander, peas, lettuce, spinach, rockets as well. Also field beans, but that's mainly because we're supplying field beans to a local restaurant. And then under the semi-regulars, I've got kohlrabi, carrots, beetroot, fennel, turnips, spring onion, bush beans and pak choi. Just so that's kind of dedicated to me. The main thing is I want your list to be dedicated to you and the things that you enjoy eating. So for a crop like beetroot, most home gardeners would not need, say, 40 cells if they're succession planting a load. And so what you can do is choose modules that have fewer cells, like the HR10 or the HR20, and then something like the 40L I'd use for kind of semi-regular crops or more of the one-offs. Now, for those of you in America, you'll be pleased to know that these container-wise trays are back in stock, available for pre-order. We're sending over a couple of pallets, and so check out my shop, huw-richards.ck.page, to make sure you get your hands on, because they went really quickly last time. A key thing with succession planting is to not forget ways of utilising undercover growing structures, be it polytunnels, hotbeds, low tunnels, cold frames, but also even just putting over a layer of fleece to create a bit more warmth, so you can use that to also extend the season. And so it means that whilst all my radish outside in raised beds are still growing, I am ahead with the nice early harvest of radish out of this hotbed. The same for the lettuce, the same for the pea shoots as well, and the pak choi. This is kind of making me a month ahead, at least a month ahead, maybe 2 months ahead with a lot of the harvests. And it's a really nice way to build in more succession into the season, so you're feeding yourself for longer. Every time I make a video and I mention field beans, I usually get a comment from someone asking, what is a field bean? And so if that is you, well, it's your lucky day, because this video right here is going to show you all about how amazing field beans are and a fantastic broad bean alternative.